Hello. So this is the first of a handful of videos I plan on doing describing exactly what my coaching and consulting services are like. And this one, I'll really focus on essentially untying knots, untying emotional and spiritual knots. But before we dive in, like always, the first thing I'll do is invite you to allow your body to breathe in the way that feels most naturally pleasant. Really seeking to allow your listening and watching to be a pleasant experience as well. You don't need to strain, you can just nurture your organic unfolding. And I'll offer my usual reminders that nothing about you needs to be any different, and everything I offer is an invitation. So, what do I mean by untying knots? Well, this is really, especially when I'm working one on one, where the focus starts. Well, focus usually starts with my usual starting place of orienting to nourishment, how to try to practice leaning into what's most okay moment to moment. And when you do that, you start to naturally find what gets in the way. And that's where I come in. It's a part where, a practice where, in the coaching dynamic, the coaching relationship, we get into your natural process, what unfolds in your mind and body. And I'm simply there to help guide you in unpacking it and undoing the knots so that you can undo those points where you usually get stuck. And it's really about getting into the embodied process. I'll have a video later on the difference between process and processing and why process is way more important. With process being the unfolding of events and phenomena, and processing being like story and interpretation. Process is where the important piece is, because that's how you really tune into the underlying elements that help you find your way towards spiritual, emotional, and relational well-being. And so normally what I do with clients is have a little bit of grounding and orientation. And then we drop into a relational process together where we do embodied communication, where we simply describe what's happening in real time as we're in connection. I started there because it helps us to feel into the relational dance. Every time you're in a connection with a therapist or a healer or a coach, the primary practice is one of relationshiping and doing it in a healthy, transparent way. And by getting into the relational process first, it helps to establish a sense of understanding and a sense of safety practices, a sense that we're going sort of sinking in together in a way that feels natural. What can feel kind of off a lot of times with coaches, therapists, whatever, is when therapists start steering the session and you don't necessarily like where it's going, or they step too far and you're not ready to go there, or they're just going somewhere and it's totally missing where you're at. Or instead of taking control, they go super passive and you're not actually feeling met. And so this is a process of actually orienting to connection from that place of nourishment that we started at. And then from there, once we've had some of that established, it's a turn towards, okay, now for the client, it's just a simple, what's it like to be in connection with yourself? And describe just what's happening in real time, not the story about it, although pieces of story might be important and might be shared. What's happening in your heart? What's happening in your belly? What's the somatic or embodied feeling in your head or other important emotional centers in your body? And what gets revealed as you do that is exactly where the stuck places are. And you just meet them as they arise. And because we start at a place of low stakes where it's like there's nowhere we need to go, we're not trying to make you any different. We're trying to nurture your organic unfolding. We just meet the first layer as it arises. And so you don't have to worry about going too deep too fast because it's naturally sort of titrated. It's this sort of word that they use in somatic um, healing practices. And so you naturally go to whatever level is there. And we deepen over time together through a level of established trust rather than showing up and being like, oh, here's my problem. Here's the problem that has to be fixed. Where it's so conceptual that you might get some really good help that way, but you're often missing that embodied process. It's just a simple, let's find the knots, try to provide them what they need, help them become softer, more malleable, easier for you to work with. And really, as I'm doing that, most of the time, I'm not doing much other than being a good spotter. And what I mean by that is it's sort of a weightlifting metaphor. I can't lift and carry your stuff for you, but I can be in support and I can help you as you are navigating it. Perhaps as you're carrying something that's particularly difficult or a big weight. And also, if you're just looking to get a good workout, if you're looking to um, develop your agility, your dexterity, your abilities, that's what I'm here for too. When we can sink into that um, connected dance, it then becomes like, oh, as I orient to nourishment, there's a lot of resourcing here. What can I do with this? How do I hold this in a way that is sustainable? And we explore that together and we find the natural inklings and impulses and look at the thought patterns that come up around that and the reactions that come up around that. So you don't take a healthy place and turn it into knots. Because it's just as important to work with these things when you're having a difficulty like a knot or a blockage of some type, and also when you're in a good place. Because sometimes it's our habits when we're in a good place that eventually take us back to being in a bad place because we're not being the best steward of our well-being. Yeah, so that's just a little bit about what I do. Um, hmm. There's some more threads in my brain, but I'm not going to try to unpack them all today. Um, if you have questions or curiosities, please don't be afraid to reach out. Free 30-minute consults are always there. Um, and I just generally love talking about this stuff. Um, so that free 30-minute consult could even include like a little brief practice just to show you a taste of what this can look like. So please don't be afraid to reach out, and I hope you have a really good day.